for the special occasion.
I want to call the association meeting to order and wow, this is great. I can just feel the kick, I feel the energy. It's a while to evolve, to come together and do each other's first.
You can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So we're gonna call the meeting to order and I need to do a.
Yes. Bybee is absent. Paul is present. Lero Munoz.
President.
Yes.
I thought it was a long ride. You can see you, isn't it?
Okay, Flieger. Flieger is present. Mock. Mock is present. Rennie. Rennie is present. Montano is absent. Elahi.
Yeah.
Elahi's present. Constantine.
Present.
Constantine present. Abakoga. Abakoga is present. Bert.
Present.
Bert is present. Jones. Jones is present. Watanabe.
Present. I'm here. Hopefully you heard me.
Watanabe is present. She had some circumstances.
Is the sound high under that one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I think.
Councilmember Watanabe.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Willia. Willia is present and Klein. Klein is present. With 13 members present, we have a quorum. And I will figure out the audio.
All right, I'm gonna take a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent calendar items 1A to 1D.
So we have motion and second.
I'm sorry, that is,
Rennie.
okay, thank you. And the seconder was,
That one is-
okay, thank you. All right, I'll now call the roll. Flieger. Flieger, I. Abakoga. Abakoga, I. Bert.
Yes.
Bert, I. Mock.
Yes.
Mock, I. Paul.
Yes.
Paul, I. Willia.
Aye.
Willia, I. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, I. Elahi.
Aye.
Elahi, I. Constantine. Constantine, I. Lero Munoz.
Yes.
Lero Munoz, I. Watanabe.
Aye. Aye.
Is I'm going to say she's an I.
Yeah.
And Jones,
Aye.
Jones, I, and Rennie.
Aye.
Rennie, I with 13 ayes and 2 absent. The motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is the JPA update, and Gary will provide that update.
Mr. President, members of the Board of Directors, I'll be giving a very brief update on the JPA. As you're aware, the board itself provided us with numerous questions on the JPA, and then there was a collection of 17 questions from the city managers group. We're in the process of responding to those questions. Shawley and I have been working on it, and chances are we will need to also go back to the committee, which consists of First Vice President Abe Koga and Second Vice President Fleiger, before we come back with the responses in a revised JPA. Chances are, while we will try to get it done prior to the end of the year, chances are it's very likely that it will be sometime early next year. So that's just wanted to give you that update. Don't have anything to provide you with or any new drafts at this time. That concludes my report.
All right. Before we go to the board, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on the JPA update? Anybody online? Guess what they didn't do. All right. No comments. I entertain comments and put for. This is an informational item, so for a vote. Seeing none. We're on to the next item, and that is the racial justice community update. We want to revise some closures, the next steps are a few items related to the work and set of recommendations presented by the Racial Justice Committee back in 2021. An update on the law enforcement virtual reality training in collaboration with the Santa Clara County Police Chiefs Association, the Cities Association issued a letter and recommendations to our respective law enforcement departments, urging utilization of virtual reality technology for crisis intervention training. VR technology has emerged as a tool to recreate real-world police encounters and training curriculum, as well as cultural competency, de-escalation, critical decision-making, peer intervention, and implicit bias training. VR technology has proven to increase efficiency in scenario-based training and allows officers to train with all of the tools, handguns, tasers, rifle, OC, etc. Unfortunately, we learned from the San Jose Police Department that specific technology provided by California's Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training proposed is not sufficient to provide the level of training that meets their standards. Ron and I actually went and viewed the training and technology, and it literally looked like we were looking at technology in 1991. It's not accurate. But today we'll have Police Chief Nikolai providing an update via Zoom. Lisa, Chief Nikolai, hopefully you're having a better experience with the technology that you're using than we had in San Jose. So I'm hoping to hear some good news.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to disappoint you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Your voices are very quiet, but hopefully you can hear me okay. As you know, you did get the update from San Jose Police Department. And unfortunately with Post, it sounds like they dropped the vendor that they were using and have switched to a new vendor. But of course, that means that the equipment that San Jose bought is no longer being endorsed, and so they're having a hard time using it. The other agency in our county that purchased a VR system is Sunnyvale. I just spoke with Chief Fan today, and he is planning on getting their system up and running in February. They've been just basically because of COVID and staffing and budgets, they've been behind the curve a little bit as well. But they plan to start training in February, and they plan on using their equipment to help other North Bay agencies like Mountain View and Los Altos to do the training as well. The third agency that has virtual reality in our county right now, I believe, is the Sheriff's Office. Unfortunately, I think everybody knows what's going on in the Sheriff's Office right now as we wait for the election results on the new sheriff. And as a result, they are not doing the training either right now. The good news is that some of our departments, including mine, Santa Clara, we have, I guess you'd call it the old-fashioned system, the system where you have the video screen and the scenarios that are run on the video screen. And those systems are working. That technology has been proven, and we're able to use some of those scenarios for our de-escalation training. Unfortunately, I think with the VR system, it was sold as already ready for market, and frankly, I don't think it quite was for this aspect for police training. I think it's going to get there. When you look at some of the other VR systems, it's a great tool, and I think eventually it's going to be used by all agencies. But for now, it's unfortunately just taking longer than we thought. So I hope that answers your questions. And if anybody has any other specific questions, I'm here to answer them as well.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Chief, for that update. Thank you, Chief, for the update.
Thank you for having me.
Is the update on Santa Clara County's hate prevention and inclusion efforts. The county's hate prevention and inclusion task force, with Supervisor Chavez previously presented on, has received a draft implementation plan for the recommendations. Ideally, we wanted to have them present on it, review how cities can coordinate and collaborate on the implementation of some of their recommendations. The report of the recommendations is now available and was prepared by the SJSU Research Foundation. I've asked Shally and Audrey to share the report with you, so hopefully everybody can see them. In addition, the district attorney's office does a lot of work on hate crime prevention, and they would be happy to present at the future board meeting as well. In line with our racial justice committee priority, as a follow-up to the presentation by Maha Wambonabi, ING, coordination with board member Gabriel Elliott. We have brought forward 2 resolutions for review, and the first one is consideration of a resolution condemning hate crimes. Hopefully everybody has an opportunity to review that the resolution. The second resolution is consideration of resolution denouncing Islamophobia. I will now take comments, inputs, recommendations, changes to those 2 resolutions. I will now go to the public and see if there are any public comments. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolutions. And the board members to take back the respective to their respective jurisdictions for consideration of adoption. So I will entertain. All right. It's been moved and seconded. I see no other comments. Right?
Yep. Paul,
Yes.
Paul, I, Mock, I, Bert, I, Watanabe,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
all right, thank you. for bearing with us with the technological difficulties. Watanabe, I. Constantine.
Aye.
Constantine, I. Klein.
Aye.
Klein, I. Lero Munoz.
Aye.
Lero Munoz, I. Flagger.
Yes.
Flagger, I. Abakoga. Abakoga, I. Wilia.
Aye.
Wilia, I. Jones.
Aye.
Jones, I. And Elahi. Elahi, I. And Rennie.
Aye.
Rennie, I. With 13 ayes, the motion carries. And
Thank you. Next is the planning collaborative update. Combined fiscal, will provide the update.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll take whatever you want to call it. Okay. We're just really delighted to be here in person to see all of you. I'm Paul Penninger with Baird and Driscoll, and it's my pleasure to be the coordinator manager of the Santa Clara County Planning Collaborative for the past couple of years. Really enjoyed it very much. You're getting a preview of the slides right now. Oh, good. Okay, there we go. And I was telling Shelley earlier that this is the first time that I've met with any of you all in person. So it's really fun to see you all in person, and have really enjoyed my time working on the collaborative. So next slide, please. So today what we'd like to do is give you a bit of an overview of where we are with the planning collaborative, talk about our collaborative goals and work plan, and also share with you some feedback that we elicited from staff at our collaborative meeting in October, asking about their advice on things that we've done well, and maybe some things that we could do a little bit better or improve on. Where they're going to talk about what our work plan might be going forward into 2023, and most importantly, open it up to suggestions and comments from you all to get guidance on how we should shape our 2023 work plan. So I've introduced myself. I'm Paul Penninger, and I wanted to also introduce you to my colleague, Christy Wong, who's here tonight, and who will be taking over along with David Driscoll, who's another principal at Baird and Driscoll, really the kind of overall senior leadership duties for the collaborative as I'm stepping away from that going into next year. So you're in much better hands with Christy and David than you have been with me. But and Christy, you might actually get to meet in person several times rather than just once. So let's go ahead and go ahead. So just as a reminder, and in all of my updates to the Cities Association, and anytime I meet with new folks who are just getting involved with the collaborative, I always start with what the planning collaborative's goals are, how it came about. It's to support excellent local planning and housing policy. So it's to help support staff, inline staff who are working day to day on crafting policies to support good, locally grounded planning and housing policies and programs. It's also to save jurisdictions time and resources. The idea is that by working together, by sharing best practices, by sharing ideas, by sharing examples of how policy staff and planning staff are working together on programs, that they can save time and resources. And this is something that has proven very successful in other collaboratives regionally, most importantly in the 21 Elements Collaborative in San Mateo County, which has been around now for more than a decade, and where San Mateo County jurisdictions have really seen significant benefits to working together over time. And then finally, in everything that we do, we aim to respect local autonomy. The Planning Collaborative isn't an advocacy group. It's not acting separately from the cities. It's acting as a technical assistance supporter and advisor to the jurisdictions in Santa Clara County, to all of the jurisdictions in Santa Clara County. So this is the Cities Association, but the collaborative also includes Santa Clara County. So we have all 16 jurisdictions represented in all of our meetings. I think all but a couple of our meetings over the past couple of years have had at least one representative from each jurisdiction attending. So it's really to respect local autonomy, do good policy, and make sure that we're saving you time and resources. Next slide, please. All right. So the all-important topic of budget. The current year's activities have been supported by a direct grant from ABAG MTC through the Regional Early Action Planning Program, REAP, in the amount of $307,587. Going forward into 2023 will be the same amount. It's a total amount of $615,000 in grant funding from the state through the region to support the planning collaborative. The vast majority of this funding is for consultants, and that includes Baird and Driscoll to manage the work plan and all of the products in that. And then also our sub-consultants to include organizations like Root Policy Research and the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under the law, who work on issues around affirmatively furthering fair housing. We also have provided direct grant stipends to local community-based organizations through our Equity Advisory Group. And those EAG member groups or Equity Advisory Group members have helped jurisdiction staff to collect comments on, for example, the draft housing elements, to broaden the participation in the housing element process and make sure that all voices are being heard. Also, as part of that budget, 5% does go to the Cities Association in order to maintain the website and to develop communications and technical assistance materials for local jurisdictions. So our work plan and the way that this is structured is that ABAG MTC requires 6-month work plans. So, and the last 6 months from July through December are reflected here on this slide that you see in front of you. We'll now be working on the next 6-month work plans for December through June of 2023. And that's part of what I want to talk to you about later on, is getting your feedback on what we should do to build on this work plan. And going into 2023, what are some of the activities that you might see as being valuable for the collaborative? But what we've been working on this period is essentially our ongoing monthly meetings and technical assistance. So we meet once a month as a full collaborative, and then in between meetings, we provide weekly newsletters, intermittent communications to city staff, and then ongoing direct one-on-one technical assistance to jurisdiction staff who reach out to us with specific questions. We also work on this very important topic of affirmatively furthering fair housing. So as some of you may know, this is a new requirement for this housing element update cycle, that all jurisdictions are required to do a detailed analysis of how their policies and programs are affirmatively furthering fair housing. And it's quite technical and quite complicated. And so we have a couple of experts on call in addition to Baird and Driscoll to provide one-on-one technical assistance with jurisdictions. So as some of your staff are getting comments now back from HED on your draft housing elements, we're connecting them with these technical resources to help respond to those comments on the AFFH sections. We were also at the direction of our steering committee and working with and we talked about this, I think, at our last update to all of you. We've also begun to explore options for ADU program collaboration. So obviously, accessory dwelling units, second units are a big topic for jurisdictions in Santa Clara County. And what staff have told us is that they would see a lot of value in looking for ways to work on plans or programs that jurisdictions could collaborate on to share resources. And that's something that's been done in other counties in the Bay Area and statewide, most notably in this region in Napa Sonoma, where there's the Napa Sonoma ADU Center, and they have a plan gallery that homeowners can look at and take a look at different prototypes of ADUs that have been pre-vetted. We also stood up a farm worker housing working group at the suggestion of staff. So we've met now 3 times with our farm worker housing working group. Several jurisdictions around the table have staff that have come to these working groups, and particularly jurisdictions that I'm thinking of Morgan Hill and the unincorporated county in particular, that work together on jointly funding housing development that serves farm workers and people with extremely low incomes. Other jurisdictions are interested across the county in figuring out how to identify farm worker housing needs, even how to identify where farm workers are, who they are, and what their housing needs are, and then how best to serve those needs. And then finally, last but not least, a very important part of our work is helping jurisdictions respond to HED comments on housing elements, and then coming out of that, looking for ways that jurisdictions can collaborate going forward on policies and programs that have been identified in housing elements. So I would say probably the biggest piece of our work over the next couple of months, going into, through the end of January of next year anyway, is just going to be helping you all respond to the HCD comments. That's going to be significant. So looking at Sunnyvale, Mountain View, some of the jurisdictions that have already gotten your HCD comment letters, you know. So that's our work plan through the end of this year, and then going into next year. Next slide, please. We wanted to ask staff, as I mentioned at our meeting in October, what they think we've done well and what we could improve on. And what we heard was it's really just helpful for them to get to know their peers, that just talking to peers in other jurisdictions that are working on similar issues is incredibly valued. Having that network, building that network over time, even though it's been all through Zoom, it's still very valuable, and they've gotten to know each other, and they share ideas and best practices, and they learn things. Also, the direct support that we provide on housing policy and planning issues, because the collaboratives and this collaborative and all the collaboratives regionally are connected to what's happening at the regional, at the state level. We're able to feed information to staff that they might not necessarily have access to as readily. So, and we're always available by email, by phone, to provide direct assistance to staff who have questions. They really appreciate the access to focused technical support that they can get through the collaborative without having to hire a consultant, having to go through that process, really just being able to like pick up the phone, send an email, and get support immediately. And then finally, they really appreciated the Let's Talk Housing outreach process. We developed a website and a series of meetings that included the Equity Advisory Group that included all of the jurisdictions in Santa Clara County around this Let's Talk Housing Santa Clara County outreach effort that really attempted to broaden the participation effort for the housing element update, bring in more and different voices, and very importantly for this collaborative, make it possible for jurisdictions to work together to do outreach. Some things that they saw that could be improved. They're really anxious for us to get going on an ADU program of some sort to collaborate across jurisdictions. That, you know, there's a lot of new laws, it's very technical. There's a lot of challenges presented to staff around how to do accessory dwelling units. And they're looking for us to provide some leadership on that. They also thought that we could improve on the timing of collaboration on outreach and engagement. So we don't know to what extent there's going to be the need for additional outreach and engagement going into 2023. But one thing, and this is more, they're almost kind of talking to themselves as much as us. One thing that they would like to see is that more jurisdictions working together on how they do outreach to community members around policy and planning issues, with the recognition that, you know, what happens in one jurisdiction is going to impact residents living in another jurisdiction. And so there's some real benefit for cities to work together on how they do outreach. And then finally, some folks expressed interest in more frequent legislative updates. So we don't necessarily do a legislative update at every collaborative meeting. We just do intermittent updates on laws, on key housing laws as they're passed, but we haven't done a regular kind of legislative update. So those are just some of the successes and improvements that were pointed out. And I wanted to move on to get your feedback. Next slide, please. On the collaborative. Some of you, you've heard me present on the collaborative numerous times now. I met one-on-one with some of you, and interested in how you think we've done, what you think we've done well, maybe more importantly, what you think we could do better. What are some of the improvements as you have the new dream team coming in that we could make in the collaborative? And what are some work plan requests for 2023? I mean, obviously, we're still going to be helping jurisdictions respond to HCD comments on housing elements. We're still going to be providing technical assistance. As you're thinking about ways that your jurisdictions could collaborate on housing issues, what are some of the things that you'd like to see that maybe we haven't even thought of, just thinking outside of the box? So with that, I just wanted to open it up. And I realized, Christy, I didn't even give you a chance to introduce yourself. And I'm going to just shut up now.
Oh, yeah. I'll introduce myself, but we're eager to hear it.
Okay, all right.
So I'm Krista Kwong. I'm a principal at Barron Driscoll. I've been with Barron Driscoll for a year and a half now. I spent the last 2 years living in Berlin, actually. But before that, I was with Burr. I was a community planning policy director. working on housing and planning issues, largely in San Francisco and San Jose. And I started my career in affordable housing development with Bridge Housing. So that's my career path, and I'm excited to get to work on this effort. I love my colleagues. I'm sad Paul's not going to be with us, but I'm a Palo Alto native, actually, so I am from Santa Clara County. My parents still live there, and yeah, happy to jump in. And our colleague David is watching on YouTube right now. He will be happy to join in the future.
David's the Driscoll in Barry Driscoll, so that's who he is. And he also, his Santa Clara County connection is he went to Stanford, so you've got local roots.
I think that's Cal Bears.
I teach at Berkeley. I'm like go Bears. I'm like.
That's a good. Okay, let's open it up for questions.
Are you able to see which jurisdictions have used your services, the typical direct assistance? Is it every single jurisdiction, all 16?
Yeah,
Some than others?
I would say, I can tell you that. I don't have a great way of quantifying it. I know that every jurisdiction has staff who have attended the collaborative meetings. And every jurisdiction over the course of the past 2 years has sent an email or made a call to me or to one of my colleagues asking for technical assistance. That said, there are definitely jurisdictions that have availed themselves of the collaborative services more than others. You know, that's one of the things that we wanted to ask is for, I think particularly, you know, well, no, it's really all over the place. I was going to say smaller jurisdictions, but some smaller jurisdictions have really taken advantage of collaborative services. And so it just really depends on the jurisdiction. Sometimes it depends on who's on staff and what kind of staff turnover or staff expertise there is around housing. That's something that we could think about in terms of metrics going forward, is how we measure who's using the services and how. Yeah. You're going to make me go through my emails and like do a filter or something.
Maybe perhaps it should go into the next year, but I think if there's any trends, is it smaller, is it bigger? I
Yeah.
think that'd be interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you both for being here. I am a big supporter of just the concept of the planning collaborative. Because obviously there's so many things, common threads that run through all 16 jurisdictions, and it's great to have the planning collaborative being that central point and working on these issues. And I'm very happy to see there'll be funding going into next year. Just two quick questions. One, it's a follow-up to Marika's question and it's feedback as well, where we don't get a regular update about the work they're doing and how we're supporting our cities. And so I think it would be helpful, figure out the metric, whatever you need to do so that we are aware and get apprised of how we're supporting our cities. And if there's anything that we can do to let our staff know about their services, let us know. Because we assume they're using your services. I mean, a lot of us hire very expensive consultants to help us with the housing element of the process. And so to the extent we can offset some of those costs by going through the planning collaborative, I think that would be very helpful.
Great. Thank you.
And then the question, I guess that was suggested, you in direct contact with HCD, do you have contacts there? Because what we're seeing with a lot of the comments, at least the ones I've heard about, it's, a lot of confusion and questions about what they mean. And I know sometimes when you have a direct contact with HCD, it's very helpful. So when you're providing comments and support to our cities, are you checking in with the contacts of HCD to give you guidance? Are you using those as a resource? How does that work?
Yes, I mean, the short answer is yes, although it hasn't been as smooth as I'll just speak for myself as I would personally like. I think one of the things, just speaking frankly, that's happened is that there's been an unprecedented amount of pressure on staff at HCD because of the amount of work that they've had in reviewing Southern California jurisdictions' housing elements and responding to subsequent drafts and revised drafts, et cetera, in Southern California. And so there's been staff turnover, and it's been sometimes difficult in Santa Clara in particular to identify the exact team that's working on reviewing the housing element, the housing elements. That said, and we very much have a direct line of communication to senior leadership at HCD, Paul McDougall and others. And so that's something that that's one of the roles that we can provide, is to continually check back with HCD and get guidance from them and make sure that we're providing the best guidance that we can to staff. I would say it has been more the staff turnover and the lack of dedicated staff that just for Santa Clara County has been, in my view, a bit of an issue.
Is there any insight into the breaking news that happened a couple of weeks ago regarding whether or not there's a true grace period? Whether or not the builder's remedy will kick in during the January through May grace period that a lot of cities, including my city, relied on based on what we were.
Well, so that's a complicated question. And I would direct you to the presentation that we made today at today's collaborative. My colleague Joshua Abrams did a presentation based on some work that we're doing with Goldfarb and Lippman to advise local jurisdictions on this issue of builder's remedy. I'm not an expert on this, so I don't want to speak out of turn. I mean, there is still a so-called grace period.
But it's,
There-
yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, but it's only related to one specific thing, and it's about the timing of when you need to do, or when you can, how much time you have to rezone. So I think in the way that we had all been thinking, there was a grace period. It's complicated, but I think the answer is no, right?
It's,
You want to forward the presentation.
I
We
think that
would-
might be better.
and it might actually be a good thing for us to present at the next city. I mean, I don't want to, what do you think, Christy?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'll bring Josh.
I think that there are quite a few questions. I mean, I think that there are quite a few questions that have yet to be answered around what the builder's remedy will mean for local jurisdictions, but there is still a grace period, but it is not the same grace period as we understood it, as most of us understood it.
So you're getting to the crux of the problem, and then I'm thinking a way you can maybe help on the solution is we're expecting it's gonna take a couple rounds of submissions to HCD,
Yeah.
and they're really slow. They're taking 3 months to get them back. So I don't know how many cities are gonna, maybe even blow through the grace period itself. So in Los Gatos, we're thinking, okay, let the cities that have got feedback, let's try to get that feedback and understand how it might apply to what we did and start work on it early, so we don't have to wait until we get our feedback and then start working on improvements. So I was thinking what the collaborative could do is start compiling the feedbacks as they're coming in from the different cities that are getting them earlier, and then help share that with the other cities as a way to help them work while they're waiting, basically.
I should have just brought the presentation for today's collaborative meeting. So that's exactly what we've been working on. There are 4 jurisdictions that have gotten comment letters, and what we've done is we've reviewed each of them and synthesized the overarching comments. I mean, obviously, we're connecting staff with resources so they can respond to the comments most importantly, but we are summarizing the letters and doing that exact thing of trying to say to the jurisdictions that haven't got comments back what you're likely to see. And there are definite trends that I would expect that jurisdictions in Santa Clara County are going to see very comparable comments, particularly in the AFFH section. So that's exactly something that we're working on and doing right now.
And certainly you had everything from Southern California that you probably already summarized that months and months ago.
Yeah.
But are we seeing anything different that's coming back in Santa Clara, or is it really just the same thing Southern California saw, and so there isn't much more value?
I think what I've heard is that it's not, the content is maybe similar, I mean, it's a similar themes. I think people are struggling with the same difficulties in meeting HCD standards. I think that we've heard that the quality of the letters right now, because staff at HCD is stretched so thin, is that they're more form letters than they were for Southern California at the moment. Just the timing of the Southern California letters wrapping up and a lot of their staff being dedicated to getting that off their plates. There's a lot more of the newer staff working on the Bay Area at the moment.
Form letter not very helpful.
No, so I think there's a lot of standard, they see one thing on their checklist and they put in a standard comment. But we have, Paul did a lot of summary of the Southern California comments that have been shared with staff, across the Bay Area. We also, and we're doing these presentations at the collaborative meetings. And then we also have a cute little web app that we're putting out that has some, like, if HCD says this to you, here's some suggestions on how to approach, further developing in this area. So that's something we're just coming out with right now.
It's called CBOT. We presented it today. We're hoping that it gains sentience and becomes the first housing AI. Yeah,
Comment bot.
comment bot.
It's not easy right now.
I would say just so a couple of notes. There are two jurisdictions in the Bay Area that have gotten conditional certification through HCD, Emeryville and the city of Alameda. And they did that because the HCD reviewers for both of those jurisdictions were willing to work with staff to address comments in kind of an iterative fashion during the HCD review period. I feel like that's the best practice at this point, because everybody not just in Santa Clara County, all jurisdictions are going to struggle to meet the January 31st deadline. And even with 120 days of the so-called grace period, which may or may not be a grace period now, are going to struggle for all of the reasons that have been mentioned. So the more you can collaborate with the reviewer during the initial review period to address comments, the better. I would say the thing I've noticed in the Santa Clara comment letters is asking for a bit more detail information on the site's inventory, and specifically assumptions around the affordability categories that are being assumed for planned and proposed projects than I'd seen in the Southern California letters. And I've probably read, 60 comment letters from across the state at this point. So they want to know that the affordable housing that's being proposed in the site's inventory that's planned and proposed is real, and that the affordability distribution of the units that is being included in the site's inventory is verifiable and can be documented. So no amount of detail in that regard is going to be too much. Just there's no such thing as overkill in that area.
First of all, I just want to thank you. I'm for my city staff that is really credit for the team you all. I'm in DC and Boston, so we've been getting updates on housing development, and I guess REACH 2 is coming forward, so we'll have hopefully opportunity for more funding. But I guess the concern is really the timeline. It looks like 17% of Southern California has been certified, and they're working on us. But is there any discussion, or I guess I'm looking for opportunities for feedback from us, the cities, to HCD about this process, because there's just a lot of, I think, room for improvement. But do you see where those opportunities lie, and then how does that tie maybe to from a legislative perspective? Would you, and maybe this is a work plan in press, but would you be able to help guide us on how we can provide effective feedback?
I think we can guide you on how to provide effective feedback. The grant is very specifically for housing supportive plans and policies, and not for political lobbying of any kind. I know that when Senator Cortese was here last year, that there were quite a few questions from elected officials about any possibility at a legislative level for there to be an extension for the Bay Area jurisdictions. And I recall his answer being, that's very difficult given the priorities of the governor and kind of the leadership in the state Senate and the Assembly, who are looking at any way possible to encourage housing production. So I know it's been discussed, and it may have even been discussed in the Legislative Affairs Committee of this, but that's something that at a political level, we're kind of not equipped to provide assistance with, but we can certainly provide advice on the best way to communicate to HEB leadership, if that helps. Christy, did you have? Yeah.
And then I saw, recently we put it out to the board last month about the transit oriented communities policy. And it seemed like there was a big miss, like my staff wasn't aware of it, checked around. There was very little communication and I think our NTC staff admitted to me, and there was no final round of outreach before the final product came, but policies like that, as they come forward, is there a way we could be on top of them more often and even bring it to this board so we all are aware of what's going on? Because it seemed like that we didn't have a lot of feedback from the county because we just I think it was like one opportunity to respond and just that's something
Thank you for that. That's absolutely something the collaborative should work on. There's kind of a miasma of information right now, and what I find is that some things that are really important like that are just getting kind of lost.
Yes.
And we need to be able to elevate those really important things and make sure that you're, as elected officials and your staff are aware of them. Thank you for that.
There's a lot of like advocates who have their voices are heard very loudly, but the folks who have to implement like us and our staff.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I think you're getting the sense that there's no ambiguity that we are interested in these things in builder's remedy. I think that the update on the other things were fine and interesting, but this is what really is yearning to have a discussion on. So you mentioned the best circumstances, this iterative process between the HCD staff and the city staff. But it sounded like for Santa Clara County, HCD staff doesn't have that capacity. They're giving form responses. So is that the case, that they don't have that capacity to really be working with our staffs that way?
I think that they'll have the capacity to do it. I mean, I can't speak for HCD.
Don't have it in the next 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, one hopes.
After the first response, I think they are more
Yeah.
engaged in the back and forth
Yeah.
to get jurisdiction across the line. But it does seem like but until you get your first comment letter, there's maybe one meeting towards the very end that they'll have with you. And then I think after that, they seem to be engaging in more one-on-one regular.
Because that runs up against this builder's remedy. So if we submit our application, our plans, and we now understand that we're on a race that's faster than even we thought. Are they going to have the capacity to respond to us in a way that would allow us to really move that ball forward and get an approved plan and a time frame, or is there a capacity constraint on their end, or willingness even? We don't know. Are they interested in really helping us achieve that goal, or not?
I don't know that we've heard that they're beating their required time frame. Like, I think the first, as you said, the first letter comes 3 months, and I think you basically get it 3 months the day after you submit it. And then I think they have 60 days for the next one.
Right.
And I know San Francisco was asking to get expedited so they could try to meet the January 3rd deadline. But I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be successful at that. And I don't know if there are any other cities that have tried to do that. I mean, there are some jurisdictions that have gotten the conditional or substantial compliance letter. Yeah, but,
I mean, I think at the staff level, I mean, and HED staff have come to collaborative meetings and have presented, and we've talked to Paul McDougall and his team, who's the person at HED who's kind of overseeing this part of of the department. There's absolutely a willingness to engage with local staff and with jurisdictions around addressing comments. I can't speak to the staffing or to the backlog issue at HCD. It's just outside of my knowledge. But I know at a personal, professional level that HCD staff are absolutely willing to engage to the extent that they have the time and capacity to do it. They're definitely not dragging their heels on purpose.
So then this other aspect of a 90-day response period, in that period, we're all in jeopardy right now from this builder's remedy. So, and this, I appreciate this more of a legal question than a planning question, but is there any additional clarity on the implications of that and a question of whether this has come up, whether cities basically can self-certify that they're substantially compliant, and that might need to go through a legal challenge to if there was a project that came forward. It's undecided as to whether cities can do that, but if you basically have gone through due diligence and to prove that you were substantially compliant, does that trigger the builder's remedy or not?
You want to take that one?
You're right, it's a legal question. I have heard lawyers make that argument that in some places HCD says that they are who determines who's substantially compliant, and there are a lot of lawyers who dispute that.
I'm sorry.
There are some lawyers who have said that it hasn't been decided, as you said, that it could be that the courts can decide that.
And has HTD indicated in
HCD thinks that they're the ones who can win it, I think.
that cities cannot, you're saying that cities cannot legally assert that they're substantially compliant HTD?
I'm not sure if they've asserted that with regard to builder's remedy. I think for the purposes of their funding programs in general, the requirement is that you have to be found by the department to be in substantial compliance.
To get that.
But I think on the legal side and whether, I bet they're not.
I think it's complicated and the how to respond to the questions is something that's kind of a moving target. What I would say is what we should do is Goldfarb and Lippman have worked on some analysis of this. And so we should provide that to the Cities Association board and make sure that gets forwarded to everybody and that you have our presentation from today's collaborative meeting. And that as we learn more about this and have better direction, that we provide that both to the collaborative members and perhaps through Shali and staff to you all. Yeah, I mean that once HED has commented on your housing element and you have responded to those comments, they may elect to send you a letter saying that we have found that your housing element is in substantial compliance or not in substantial compliance. After that, what happens is the subject of some dispute between very smart legal scholars who have different points of view about what the state law requires.
And are all of our staffs receiving?
Yes.
Reports?
All of your staffs and any other staffs who want them. We try to share as much of what we do with the other collaboratives around the region, and we also leverage any work that they're doing.
Last question. We're at the top of the hour, but any additional questions? Definitely reach out to.
I mean, you could send me a text or email. I'm not going anywhere. I'll just forward it to them now.
Excuse me, I have a quick question. Is there, here, let me back up. I understand 4 municipalities, jurisdictions from Santa Clara County have received comment letters.
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
That's right.
When HCD receives or is sending out those comment letters, how are they, is it, how are they deciding which ones to send first? Is it the first application in?
Yeah, it's first
Then
past the post.
It's first past the post?
Yeah, I don't know, it's Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Saratoga, Campbell. I expect the next one will be Morgan Hill. And I could go down the list.
So you know when each jurisdiction submitted their draft?
Oh, yes.
That's all public on the.
Yeah, we monitor that as well as a collaborative. As we've been going through, we've asked and staff find it a benefit to know.
Okay, you answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sensitive to the time.
Thank you. And again, opportunities to follow up and ask additional questions. Now I want to see if there's any public comments on this item. Anything around? We're on to item 5, vote on nominations for the CAFCC 2022 Executive Committee. And the nomination committee, or I think, Dr. Paul, Jerry Mock, and Rich Constantine for their hard work on coming up with some good candidates. For president, it will be Margaret Hanover. For first vice president, Lisa Flagger. Second vice president, Rich Constantine, secretary treasurer, Ray Klein, and member of I am now going to open up nominations from the floor. Anybody wants to nominate anyone? Not seeing any. I'll entertain. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will entertain comments or a motion. Move to accept the nomination. All right, so move.
Second.
Move seconded. Any other comments? If not, then aye.
Would the mover please state your name? I'm sorry. Okay. And the seconder was, okay, great. Just managing a lot of things here. Okay.
Take your time. There's a lot going on.
All right. Mock.
Yeah.
Mock. I, Bert. Bert, I. Willia. Willia, I. Little Munoz. Little Munoz, I. Abacoga. Abacoga, I. Klein. Klein, I. Jones. Jones, I. Paul. Paul, I. Constantine. Constantine, I. Elahi. Elahi, I. Flagger. Flagger, I. And Watanabe.
Aye.
Watanabe, I. And do we have one more? Oh, Rennie, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Rennie, I. All right, with 13 ayes, the motion carries.
Next is interim executive director contract and various and providing updates.
Mr. President and members of the board, as you are aware, Shawley's, I'm sorry, what?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Okay, it's kind of hard to hear you, sorry. Shawley Sirkay has been serving as our interim executive director, formerly acting executive director, and has gotten accolades from all of us for her hard work. Her contract expires at the end of the year, so we've received a request to extend that contract. It's extended, including increasing the not to exceed from 50,000 to 85,000. Her rate continues at the same rate of $100 per hour. So there's no increase in that. And it comes out to approximately 10,000 per month. And in order to leave a little bit extra in case there's additional work, the increase is to 35,000. And my understanding is that this funds are included in our budget. So there's no budgetary change required. And staff recommends, as does the president, that this contract amendment be approved. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I.
And
Aye.
Rennie.
Aye.
Rennie, aye.
Oh, I don't think you hear
With
me.
13 ayes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not bad. With
Yeah.
13 ayes, the motion carries.
Thank you. Next, item 7, legislative action committee update.
Mr. President, we have no updates.
Thank you. Item 8, Edgewater County City Managers Association.
The Santa Clara County City Managers Association met on November 9th. There was a presentation on emergency management from Maria Feldman. Also, there were 3 presentations from the Leadership Academy on the following 3 projects. 1, continuity of operations planning. 2, the future of reach codes. And 3, victims' rights and car towing / storage fees. In addition, Frank Bettis presented the 2023 work plan for the Next Gen Committee. This work plan will include speed coaching, a regional internship program, tomorrow's department head forum, and the management talent exchange program.
Next is the executive director.
So the big thing that I wanted to tell everybody is that our holiday party is December 8th. So hopefully you would have all gotten the initial email about it, but I will be following up. So if you have any questions about it, please email me. December 8th, it's on.
All right.
Is that the grand?
Good question. So that's actually the day of certification of the election. And some of us are at a meeting, at least one city, is having their ceremonial handover with regard to the council. And so that's, I guess it's an irreparable conflict. Is there any way to, at this time, move it to another date? Because I don't know how many conflicts there are potentially out there. Just wanted to put that on the table in case there were multiple cities have that.
What time is the lunch? It's from 6 to 9.
Okay, it's a direct order.
It is direct
So,
order.
right.
Does anybody else have that same conflict?
No, this is 13.
Maybe I'll talk to our city manager and then maybe we can move it.
Yes, there you go.
All right.
And we still are accepting nominations for the Students Association champion, so provide me with your nomination or recommendation. That would be appreciated. Okay, next is joys and challenges. Bigger joys.
Kathy, I'll go.
Okay, thanks.
So this is actually my last meeting here with the group. Gilroy does not have term limits, but my wife does. So I'm at the end of my journey with all of you. I just want to quickly say how much fun it's been over the last, I think it's 8 years that I've been on this group. This has always been my favorite external board that I've been a part of. we all represent our respective communities, but I always felt like this was, a larger community for all of us. And so really, it's been something that I've enjoyed. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. And thank you also for, the support during the challenges that we collectively face, but also, individually. I know for me, with the Garlic Festival shooting and the challenges that we faced thereafter, and I remember talking about the joys and challenges in the meeting shortly thereafter. And I really did feel a lot of that support. That was very important, especially for me. So thank you all. Wish you all the best, and I'll be watching online in the future.
Thank you, Peter. Any other joys and?
Joy, our mayor was reelected. And we have our incumbent, Mayor Gadami, and our newest councilman, Rob Moore. So I think that's a great show of our time.
It is. We could have been done worse.
Yes, always the case. Not seeing any more joys or challenges, I'll open up for public comments. Not seeing any for public, you want to have a comment. This meeting is adjourned, and now we're gonna roll into one of our top priorities, and that's board member development. I'm glad everybody's gonna be participating in the workshop. So,